What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports, back again with another one. Ever since the WBA gift-wrapped Yourdenis Ugas the Super WBA welterweight title, it's been wide speculation that he would unify with IBF welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. Free Smoke got on his Twitter and said, "Strap season. I want to fight him and collect my third belt. On my way to undisputed at 147. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what Free Smoke said. Now, the fight has been talked about and discussed, but still no deal. The fight has not been finalized. And what I've been hearing behind the scenes is the location and the purse split is what's holding this fight up. First of all, Yourdenis Ugas wants 50-50 if he has to go to Dallas, Texas and fight Errol Spence Jr. in his hometown. He's been burned in his eyes in a Sean Showtime Porter fight out of a decision win to get his first major world title belt. That was the WBC. That fight took place in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was either 2019 or late 2018. That fight took place in Carson, California, in the old StubHub Stadium, home of the LA soccer team. Fight was very close, very close. I thought Sean Porter edged it out, but I think I might even had that fight a draw, man. I got to go back and look at my scorecard for that fight, man. That fight was very, very close, but I thought after that fight was over with, I was like, I was like, oh, man, they robbed Yourdenis Ugas. It was just a lot of close rounds, and I thought Yourdenis Ugas lost the fight more than Sean Porter won it. Now that I think about it, thinking back to that, and the reason was, he had control of a lot of rounds, but he just didn't do enough. He landed the more accurate punches. He seemed like his punches did a little bit more damage than Sean Porter's punches did. But it seemed like at times it was time to put your foot on the gas. It's time to take that round, take over that round. You probably winning the round. Sean Porter's rattling. He's fighting on the outside, fighting a different style of fight that was probably throwing a lot of people off. They was like, damn, Sean Porter can box. He can box on the outside. He's not a guy that's just coming in, in that football style of fight. He coming in like a running back going up the middle and, attacking. He fought on the outside, showed his skills, showed his versatility. And see, a lot of those rounds were very, very close. Could have went either way, but I thought a lot of those rounds, Yourdenis Ugas lost those rounds more than Sean Porter won it. You got to understand, Sean Porter was a champion. You got to take the title from the champion. Back in the days, back in the Muhammad Ali days and the Larry Holmes days, you had to take the title from a champion. Now, it's a little bit more straight up. If a guy boxes a guy, he can be the challenge. He can get a decision depending on what style of fighting a particular judge prefers. He likes the aggressive style of fighting, or he likes the guy that can box, the more technical boxer. So it just depends on what you like. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some guys like fat women. Some guys like slim women. Some guys like petite women. Some guys like healthy women. Some guys like thick women. Some guys like anorexic women, real skin. It just depends on what you like, man. And that's what that fight reminded me of. But back to Ugas and Spence. The thing I'm hearing in the behind the scenes that really is the problem is the purse split. 50-50 is what Ugas wants. If he says the fight's got to take place in Dallas, Texas, because Texas is the main capital of boxing right now. They're putting on more fights than any other state since we've been dealing with this pandemic. The governor of Texas about a month ago said Texas is 100% open. Masks are no longer required. I think at Jerry's World, they're allowing up to 75% capacity of fans. They're going to have 70,000 fans in attendance for Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders. So that's the place, the most likely destination for that fight. Errol Spence, 3 out of his last 4 fights have taken place at Jerry's World. And he's looking to put that fight against Ugas at Jerry's World, as that's the venue that's going to make the most sense. And like I said, if it ain't making dollars, it ain't making sense. But Ugas is saying, I don't want to go that way because I got robbed, in my mind, in the Sean Showtime Porter fight. And I know if I go fight Errol Spence and the fight goes 12 rounds, more than likely I want to get the short end of the stick when it comes to the decision. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. But as far as record goes, man, Yourdenis Ugas is 26-4, 12 knockouts. The guy doesn't have a high knockout ratio, man. This guy's got pillow fists, feather fists. He makes Paula Malignaggi look like Thomas Hitman Hearns. He don't knock out nobody, man. He's the guy that's, you look at his physique. The guy's muscular guy. The guy's seems like he should be generating more power, but that's just not the case. I'm being a little bit exaggerated when I say he makes Paulo Malignaggi look like Thomas Hitman Hearns, but I believe Paulo Malignaggi's knockout ratio was higher than Yourdenis Ugas. You know, so that's crazy. But he's a skillful Cuban fighter. He fights not like the typical Cuban fighter because he's a little bit more aggressive. He's a guy that's a more come-forward fighter than a lot of the typical Cuban fighters who fight off the back foot. That fight between him and Errol Spence Jr. will be a tactical fight more than people think. I think they'll have their moments where they bang it out a little bit, but it'll be more of a tactical fight. And I think the jab of Errol Spence Jr. will be the difference in that fight. The jab and overall athleticism and better footwork of Errol Spence Jr. will carry the day in that particular matchup. But as the fight gets announced, I'll be more in depth with my analysis leading up to that fight if it indeed gets done. But as far as Errol Spence Jr., he's 31-0, 27 knockouts. Just look at the knockout ratio difference between those two guys. And he's been in there with the better competition. Quiet as kept, Errol Spence Jr. has the second best welterweight resume behind Sean Showtime Porter. A lot of people say, man, Errol Spence ain't done that at 147. Who has he fought at 147? He's got a better resume at 147 than Terrence Bud Crawford, than Danny Garcia, than Yourdenis Ugas, and a lot of guys. The only guy that I can say has a better resume at welterweight is Sean Showtime Porter. You look at the resume of Errol Spence Jr., he's fought, Mikey Garcia. He's fought Lamont Peterson. He's fought Danny Garcia. You know what I'm saying? He fought Chris Algieri, who fought Manny Pacquiao for a world title over there in Macau, China. He's been there with some top fighters. Now, I'm going to talk about one opponent that could play a part in this fight, two not maybe happening next. Ocampo. That was the last time he did a mandatory in the IBF, and that was back in June of 2018. So it's been more than 2 years. So that's another thing they got to be very wary of. Will IBF call for the mandatory? And their rules are very strict. They don't overlook, or they won't put aside undisputed unification. That doesn't trump the mandatory in the IBF. Other organizations like the WBC, and WBA, and the WBO, they might overlook it, if you got a chance to be unified champion, undisputed champion. But IBF is very strict. Mandatory trumps everything. So that could be coming into play as far as Errol Spence Jr. goes. Errol Spence Jr. was at the Maurice Hooker fight with him and Virgil Ortiz, and they asked him a question about who is he fighting next. He said he hopefully will be Ugas, but he said it could be anybody. He said, I'm ready to fight anybody. So they let me know that the negotiations are far from done between him and Ugas, and he could go the IBF mandatory route if it's called by the IBF. Another thing, Yourdenis Ugas has options. He can fight Keith one-time Thurman. That could be a fight that he can make some money out of. He could probably get his best payday thus far fighting Keith one-time Thurman, who's been a part of a real successful pay-per-view with Manny Pacquiao. That's a 50-50 fight due to mostly Keith Thurman's inactivity. Or he could go the route of fighting Jose Cito Lopez, a.k.a. the Riverside Rocky, who's been promised a big fight by Al Heyman. He can go that route. I'm hearing Lopez look like he's more likely to fight Sean Porter. Sean Porter don't get the Chance Crawford fight, but Lopez is sitting in a pretty good position as he's looking at possible matchup with Porter, or maybe he can get Yourdenis Ugas. Like I say, Al Heyman has promised him a big fight, and those are the two biggest fights out there for Jose Cito Lopez. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But that's the update, man. The purse split and location is the main thing. And once again, the pandemic is slowing down a lot of big fights from getting made, a.k.a. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. It's playing a part in Errol Spence Jr. and Yourdenis Ugas, as Ugas is not fond of going to Dallas and fighting Errol Spence there, and that just cuts down half of the venues that are available to hold a fight of this magnitude. Maybe they can go to Florida, or maybe they can go to San Antonio, Texas. They might make it a little bit comfortable. Maybe, but I doubt if Yourdenis Ugas want their fight to be anywhere in Texas. At San Antonio, Texas, there'll be a lot of Errol Spence fans traveling down from Dallas, and he basically have the hometown advantage in San Antonio, similar to what we have actually in his hometown of Dallas, Texas. Let me know your thoughts about Errol Spence Jr. and Yourdenis Ugas. Has not been finalized, despite speculation that it was going to get done relatively easy, as both guys were advised by Al Heyman. But there's a couple obstacles in this way. and keep preventing it from coming to fruition. Let me know your thoughts and hit the like button if you like the content of this video, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. Holla.